Hello, everyone, and today I am going to be talking about Wednesday's severe weather setup across the western Ohio Valley and through the Tennessee Valley and down to the Mid-South, like Little Rock, Memphis. But really, I am going to be focusing on the Ohio Valley regions. But first, I want to just briefly go over today's threat here. This is today. And we see a slight risk from south of Abilene, Texas, all the way up to like Lincoln, Nebraska, and then northeast of Kansas City into northeast Missouri. We have a enhanced risk from Kansas City down to the Red River area, just north of Wichita Falls. This is going to be primarily a tornado-driven and hail-driven enhanced risk here. We see a 10% hatched through Wichita north and east down to Oklahoma City down to Fort Sill. So, uh, very could be a very active day. There are a few sort of you know kind of discrepancies with models. I haven't really checked them too much this morning, but I know as of last night, H was a little um, having a little bit of issues with the capping and mixing. So but that seems to be an issue that HRR does have, 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours out of an event. It seems it can't mix, it struggles in mixing well with the environment. Here's our wind threat. Kansas City, Wichita, the primary wind threat, but that 15% does stretch down to Abilene, Texas. And our hail threat will be from really Kansas City, westward to central Kansas, down to Abilene, Texas as well. Um, so really, Wichita down to Oklahoma City, um, it's going to be the prime area for a possible significant severe weather. Here's our day two outlook, and that severe weather in our plains will move off to our north and to our east and even our south here. But we see a massive area of a slight risk: Wichita Falls, Dallas, Waco, Texas, all the way up to Cleveland, Detroit, and then even up close to central Wisconsin. We can see our huge enhanced risk from Milwaukee, Detroit, all the way down to Shreveport. Um, and this here is going to be again, a tornado, wind, and hail driven enhanced. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if this gets potentially upgraded to a moderate at some point. Um, if things kind of continue to show that there could be some discrete activity, which I will go over. But still, this is a significant event, more than likely that will happen across our area. See our tornado risk here. Indianapolis, Cincinnati, St. Louis, even Springfield, south to Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee, Little Rock, and just north of Shreveport. We see our wind risk. Really, the a lot of the Ohio Valley here. Your eastern parts of the Midwest down to your Tennessee Valley and Mid South regions. Significant damaging wind possible. Then our hail threat is going to be further south, where kinematically things may not be as strong, but we can see some significant hail. Dallas up north through Indianapolis. So again, a potential significant day tomorrow, um, with the threat for some really strong damaging winds and even a possible strong tornado or two, or likely. So this is our Euro model, and I'm just gonna go over our kind of our upper air sort of pattern here. See what I can see. See what see what we can figure out here. So this is today's setup here, and we can see kind of a not a very well sort of defined exit region, but we can kind of see a little short wave here, um, kind of peek out through our plains up through even eastern Colorado. But as this moves on across the day and through the night, we can see that really starting to deepen in our wind field up in the 500 millibar level really start to strengthen as well. So as we move on, this is Wednesday morning. We can see our broad trough here stretching down on the west coast here, south of California. This is our broad trough. At this time, we'll have a surface low somewhere in the northern plains. We'll look at that in a second. But really, our um, greatest forcing into Wednesday afternoon is going to be across southern Wisconsin, southern Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Illinois, much of the eastern part of Iowa, even Missouri, down south across southern Illinois and Indiana. This region through here is going to see, I think, the most forcing in this event. We could see some decent, sort of, parallel flow here to our northeast from our southwest. Not very um, strong forcing wise, but we could see a few little short waves, little kinks in our isobars here that could help the forcing across southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, and into the southeastern Oklahoma region, and especially our northeastern Texas region up through here. We could see some possible shortwave forcing. Um, so kind of interesting. We need to look at that. You can see little kinks in our isobars there. As we move on to the night, we can see our jet streak here, associated with our low pressure, which should be up um, around the Minnesota region at this point. But we can see our very strong jet streak approaching 120 knots. Um, I mean, that is significant forcing. Very, very strong kinematics across really your upper Ohio Valley into the Great Lake region up through here. Um, yeah, this is something to watch out for, and we can even see some pockets of 80 knots across with where these short waves are. Especially there's one right here we can see fairly well. Some nice pockets of forcing there. That's going to be something to also look out for. Let's try to get a more high. Let's get a more high resolution here. Um, First, I do want to just mention. Let's look at our just look at our temperature here on the Euro model. Let me adjust it here. Sorry, but yeah, we can see our we can kind of see where our warm front here is stretching through kind of Detroit, just north of Chicago, and we can see where our cold front would be located at. Our low pressure would be sitting around northern Iowa, and this is at around 1 p.m. Um, as we move on, we can see that low pressure moves on uh, to northern Wisconsin, moving to a northeast direction. We could probably see this on the dew points a little better, actually. So let me switch over to the dew points if it's going to let me. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. The Euro just didn't want to load anymore. Um, I guess it quit. So I am here going to show you the NAM 3K here, and we can see it's a little slower compared to the Euro. Our low pressure would be sitting kind of western Iowa, a little bit further west, a little slower. And as we move on throughout the day, that low pressure gets pushed up to Wisconsin by 7, 8 p.m. and then up northward. So let's look at our wind height here, 500 millibar. We're just going to kind of compare real quick. More high resolution here. So by Wednesday morning here, this is around 7 a.m. We can see our jet streak here. We can see our little shortwave here. Let me zoom in. We can see the little bend in our isobars here. Very, very kind of can't really even notice that much, but we can see this little sort of backward C motion in our isobars. This indicates a shortwave through here. Right where our jet streak is, our exit region would be up through here. This is in the morning though. I'm not expecting much convection wise in the morning, but we can see our development of our pretty significant um, jet streak there. And as we move on through the day at 2 o'clock, we can see our greatest forcing is going to be across Wisconsin, or Michigan, central Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, northward. Um, really through here, our greatest forcing, um, kind of, in par with the Euro as well. And as we move on throughout the day here, that we can see our closed low pressure now move on through northern Wisconsin and northeastern Minnesota with this jet streak. Um, again, back up here into Wednesday evening, we can see um, little smaller short waves in our southern mode, possibly to help with the forcing across the Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, northern Arkansas region. I wouldn't be shocked around this area here. We could maybe see a slightly increased tornado threat compared to the region south, and especially well with the region south. Um, but again, this is a very impressive 125, 130 knot jet streak here, extremely strong. Kinematically, the system has a lot of what you need kinematically. I do want to look at the 850 millibar though. Just getting a better idea of our low level jet at the time. This is very important for the spin of tornadoes, especially more of surface spin. But we can see our low level jet starts screaming by Wednesday morning. I mean, we're talking 80 knots across northeastern Texas, all the way up to Indianapolis, Chicago, where it's around 65 knots. But very impressive low level jet. I mean, by 1 o'clock, I mean, even up in northern Wisconsin, Michigan, northern Illinois, we're still seeing 50 to 60 knots. But really, we have a centered here, right where our greatest tornado threat. Let's kind of just look at that real quick. Our greatest tornado threat really expands from Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Springfield, southward, Louisville, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Memphis, Little Rock. Um, again, that short wave that I talked about on the south here, on the 500 millibar, could impact, could spawn a few strong tornadoes across the Arkansas region and even further into maybe even northeastern Texas. But we can see where our main tornado threat it aligns very well with our Lulu jet here. It's going to be screaming across this region, 60 to 70 knots, even 80 knots across southern Illinois into central Indiana. That's going to be in favor, and it sort of even weakens throughout the day according to the NAM 3K here. But and as that gets pushed off northeastward to Michigan, but that's going to be very, very impactful, I think, in this system. And let's take a sounding here. Let's just take it sort of west of Indianapolis here. And we can see by about 2 o'clock, we can see our curvature, right, clockwise curvature, a very impressive 60 knot, winds, 1 kilometer up, and then very impressive curvature there. Our instability around 2000, we have a really good, mid-level and upper level cape here. Surface level, maybe not as impressive, but kinematically, um, that should be able to sort of make up for that. But this is not a good looking sounding, as we can see our very kind of sort of deep layer of cape here. As I said, it kind of does sort of weaken, according to the NAM here. We go an hour ahead. It's around 3 o'clock. We can see our surface cape here, just west of Indianapolis. Get a little stronger, but again, kinematically great looking, with almost 2,000 surface cape and then 1,700 mixed layer cape. Yeah, this is very impressive for this time of year. So I wanted to look at the surface temperature real quick. I'm going to use the NAM 3K and the HRRR for this. I will be zooming in to the Ohio Valley region here. So as we go, this is gonna be Wednesday around 10 a.m. We can see already our low 70s approaching, mid Indiana or central Indiana, central Illinois, already into central Missouri, Kentucky, even approaching parts of the mid 60s, West Virginia, southern Ohio. Although this region won't be really much of any risk, I think, Wednesday at all. But however, as we move on throughout the day, this warm front surges northward, and by 4 p.m., we're getting mid 70s, and especially across central Ohio, central Kentucky, southern Indiana. We could have some upper 70s possible, in this region where maybe more clearing is going to be happening. But again, we see our temperatures go into the mid 70s. That's definitely favorable enough for convective development. Just looking for dew points here. This is important as well. So we know kinematically we have, so this past event we had go through the Ohio Valley. Kinematically it didn't look that great, but thermodynamically wise, it was very potent for this time of year for that region. This time we have a mix of both. Kinematically it looks very well, and then moisture wise, well, there are some, there have been some issues with the moisture. Um, But as of 1 p.m., we can see our warm front really surge past Indianapolis, heading to South Bend, um, Cincinnati, Dayton, Lexington, Louisville, we're all into this warm sector. It's pretty big here. We're talking mid 60s, really, across the entire region. And as we go into the evening, we can see some upper 60s start surging northward to central Indiana, even some upper 60s maybe popping out through western Ohio, central Kentucky, but we can see this surge of moisture come in Thursday. And then by late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, we can see it sort of thin out, but very impressive warm sector. It maybe won't go as far north. Maybe southern Illinois, northern central, or excuse me, central southern Wisconsin, even central and southern Michigan. This is your biggest question. How far north and how strong north will this moisture go? We can see in southern Michigan, we can see those mid 60s sort of flow in by the evening time Wednesday. But really, but I think kinematically, even with your low 50 dew points, possibly, um, and I'll go look real quick. But we can even see with our low the mid 50s across our central Wisconsin, southern, and with how just strong their kinematics are, that's going to be enough to probably cause some issues with some hail and a spin up or two. Let's look at our H triple R here. Let's look at our dew points. So we see here Wednesday afternoon. It's 1 p. Let me fix that. Okay, so we're gonna compare here. This is the NAM 3K at Wednesday at 1 p.m. See our warm front approaching South Bend and approaching just about 100 miles, 50 to 100 miles south of Chicago. H triple R, much more north already. This warm front, it's already sort of in South Bend at this point. It's already sort of in Chicago, approaching the Chicago suburbs at this point. Um, Clicking everything, but I need to click. Oh my Lord. And then NAM here, we can see, yeah, just not as defined up north here. And then actually, the warm sector is a little further east compared to the H triple R, where it kind of gets, they are actually roughly the same, eastward extent. That was kind of sort of, yeah, they're about the same now. The H triple R was sort of further west and not as, defined, but now we can see very similar, and by 1 o'clock we can see mid 60s in Indiana, central Illinois, even approaching that southwestern sector of Ohio with Ohio or Cincinnati, Ohio, and Dayton, Ohio, down to Lexington here. As we go throughout the day, those mid 60s will keep surging northward, and then maybe not as HRR is not as defined northward as the NAM, believe it or not. Even though it starts off further north in the day, it doesn't actually push as far north as the NAM, which is interesting. So let's look at the just the possible radar, what the radar could look like. Don't take this as any sort of confirmation of what's going to happen. This just gives us an idea of what the environment could do here. So this is Tuesday night, and as we're approaching Wednesday morning, we can see some possible morning convection across central Illinois, central Indiana. That could play a possible issue on this destabilization across the area, but we should be fine by mid-morning. We should have some sort of sun peeking out at that time. Our main line of convection here is going to be southern Missouri approaching southern Illinois by about 2 or 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock into the evening, this approaches Indiana, your western Kentucky region. Um, Damaging wind, hail. We can see some embedded tornadoes, but interestingly enough, here we can see some by evening time. We can see some discrete activity across southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, southwestern central Ohio. These are gonna have to be watched, and this has been a trend on the HRR the last sort of few runs. Um, just these discrete activity in that region there, uh, and that moves off north, and we can even see even more develop along that line throughout the night across western Ohio, and those will move up through Ohio. So very interesting. I don't see many people talking about these discrete cells. possibly, um, but really, I think our main threat will be this main line here with embedded tornadoes, damaging winds, and some large hail possible, especially down south across Arkansas and Tennessee. Here's a NAM 3K here. Not the greatest model, but we can see the morning convection across central Illinois, central Indiana. It's going to be fairly similar. Um, how much clearing will take place is kind of unknown, but the NAM is definitely sort of further west with the initial sort of activity here, but same general idea. It doesn't really show any discrete activity across um, across your Ohio Valley region down here. Doesn't show your discrete activity, and then really it sort of just you just kind of get these clusters of storms here. Maybe some discrete activity way later into the night throughout central Indiana, southern Indiana, and then western and central Ohio later that night. Maybe some discrete activity way later than HFR. Definitely a discrepancy there with convection initiation um, compared to the HFR and NAM. So that is something to kind of look out for, and I think we'll get a better idea of that after tonight. Let's go look at our surface-based cape just real quick. This is our NAM. We can see by Wednesday afternoon here, we have a good swath of 1,500 to 2,000 cape, even a good swath here of 2,500 plus cape through Cincinnati, Dayton, Lexington, down to Nashville, Louisville, also in that. So any storms that can develop, late afternoon in the evening into the night into this little increased section of 1,500 to 2,000 cape, according to the NAM. Um, and this is where the discrete activity was for the HRRR. Of course, the NAM is a few hours late, where it kind of sits at this 1,500 joules per kilogram cape, central Indiana to western Ohio. Okay, this is our HRRR here, surface-based cape. Um, again, we can see sort of that sort of increase of cape. It's a little further west, not as not into Cincinnati, but Louisville still, Bloomington, Indiana, down to Nashville. We can see 2,000 cape, and when these storms initiate across the border of Indiana, Ohio to Louisville, they're going to be in 1,500 joules per kilogram cape. So the cape is going to be thermo-wise, it's going to be fairly that's going to be still favorable at this time. And with the kinematics, that's definitely a recipe for some potential significant severe weather across this region right here. So I just want to just show you this. This is just another sort of resource I like to use. Anything with 70, 75 or higher. Really, all that means is there's a good threat for severe weather. Anything like 80, 80, 85 or higher, significant weather, severe weather could be possible. But don't take this, take this with a grain of salt. This isn't going to be, um, this isn't something to just fully base your forecast off of. So this is by 1 p.m. Wednesday. Um, we can see our environment is definitely favorable for some severe weather developments across your Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley here. Of course, there's certain other factors that go into play, like the forcing. The forcing won't be there. And by we go into the evening, we can see this sort of this threat by 10 o'clock, sort of be central Indiana down to the mid South, Arkansas. Um, our main sort of region to look out for, severe weather wise. So that kind of, I briefly just went over this video was very long, but I briefly went over this setup here across the Ohio Valley. But I really do think Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, northward to even south of Detroit, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, Louisville, this sort of section, it's sort of hit or miss right now. But any sort of discrete cell that can really start to thrive in that environment will have a tornado threat with it. Absolutely. That goes down south through like Jackson, Memphis, Little Rock, Evansville. That goes for that region too. Everywhere in this enhanced risk needs to be aware Wednesday. I wouldn't be shocked if parts of this enhanced risk get increased to a moderate risk, but we will see how the model trends sort of pan out today, and also it very well depends on how today's severe weather setup across the plains sort of sets up across Iowa, northern Missouri, and Illinois through the late night. So, um, very active day, and I didn't even talk about the day three outlook, which is definitely more into the Ohio Valley region that I will cover. Cincinnati, Columbus, Charleston, West Virginia, Louisville, Evansville, Bowling Green. Um, Potential severe weather and even flooding too. I will have to talk about the flooding risk for Ohio Valley probably tomorrow, and I will also talk about the setup tomorrow across the Ohio Valley region, which very I think Thursday's threat here. This is for Thursday, and we there's slight risk. I think, especially up north here, it's going to be very dependent on what Wednesday does. Morning convection wise, will it clear out in time? But this sort of stalls across this region here in the next few days after this, and we're going to see some heavy rains across West Virginia to Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, really all of this location could see some heavy rain. But um, until then, I will be back tomorrow with another video. Thank you for watching, and bye.